Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Lifestyle School podcast. This is a podcast where we simplify healthy living so that you can create the life that you desire, where you are at a healthy weight and your health is thriving. I am your host, Hope Plack, and today we're going to talk about something that I believe is at the root of why so many people feel like their body has, quote, stopped working. You used to be able to cut calories, work out a little bit more, and the weight would come off, right? But now it doesn't. And you're doing the same things, or, I mean, honestly, you're probably doing more than you used to, and your body is pushing back harder than ever. I've been there. You've probably been there. It's so frustrating. And what most people are told in that moment is, you just have to try harder. Or maybe we are just like saying this to ourselves in our head, right? You have to try harder. You have to be more disciplined. You have to track better. You have to eat less. But what if that's not the problem? What if the real issue is that your metabolism has shifted and your body is now operating under a completely different set of rules? That's what we're going to unpack today. We're going to talk about what insulin resistance actually is, because I think it's super important that everyone on earth understands, especially in the modern world, what insulin resistance actually is, why it makes fat loss feel almost impossible, the real pathways that lead you to a place of insulin resistance, and most importantly, how to start reversing it. Because once you understand this, everything begins to change on your weight loss, health, and lifestyle journey. So, before we get into it, as always, quick reminder, I'm not a medical doctor, and this podcast is for educational purposes only. It's not intended as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare practitioner before making any major changes to your diet or lifestyle. And then another reminder, if you didn't know already, my online supplement store is officially open. If you've been wanting high quality supplements you can actually trust, this is where to get them. Every product in my store is third-party tested for quality and purity. They're high quality products that your body's actually going to be able to absorb and use, which unfortunately isn't something that you're guaranteed when you're buying supplements from a place like Amazon, or grabbing them from your local grocery store or health food store. These are the same professional grade supplements that I use myself and I recommend to my clients. And it's an easy way for you to support me and the Lifestyle School podcast. So if you want to support us in that way, head over to www.hopepotcoaching.com. Use the code 104567 to create an account. Again, that's 104567. I'll also link that in the show notes to create an account. And if you aren't sure exactly where to start when it comes to supplements, go listen to episode 43 of the podcast where I talk about the core four supplements that I recommend and why they matter for metabolic health. Okay, guys, with that, let's jump into this episode. So let's strip this down to something really simple. Every time you eat, especially carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises, okay? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Your body releases insulin to deal with that. That is, how our body was designed to work. Insulin's job is to take that sugar out of your bloodstream and move it into your cells so it can be utilized as energy. Because if we have too much blood sugar in our body at one time, that sugar creates damage to our vessels, our blood vessels, and can result in inflammation, in the buildup of plaque and damage, oxidative stress to our cells. So it's really important that we have the right amount of insulin to come take that blood sugar out of our bloodstream and put it to use as energy, right? That's a good thing. That's normal. That's what we want to happen. But here's where things start to go sideways. When your body is exposed to high insulin levels over and over and over again, your cells start to stop listening. They become resistant. Okay. So now instead of a normal amount of insulin doing the job to get that sugar out of your bloodstream, your body has to produce more and more and more and more just to get the same effect. And that is insulin resistance, okay? And here's the key thing that most people don't understand is that insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone, it is a fat storage hormone. I'm going to say it again louder for the people in the back. Insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone, it is a fat storage hormone. So when insulin is chronically elevated, what that means is your body is being told to store body fat, right? Your body is being blocked from burning fat that you already have stored, and your hunger signals start to become dysregulated. Okay. I'm going to say these are the three main things that happen that is critical for you to understand. Your body is on fat storage mode when your insulin is chronically elevated. You're blocked from burning fat you already have stored, and your hunger signals start to become dysregulated and they go whack. Okay. Very technical term right there. So you're sitting there thinking, I'm doing everything right. This has always worked for me in the past. What is wrong? Like, why isn't this working? And the answer to that question is your body is hormonally being pushed in the opposite direction of weight loss, right? It's in storage mode. It's in, the mode where it cannot access that stored fat to be lost. And so, if you are trying to lose weight and you're not aware of this, you are going to feel incredibly frustrated. And I think so many people like live in that space of like, I'm cutting calories, I'm exercising more, I'm in a caloric deficit, I'm doing all these things that have worked. Like, why isn't this going to work? Right. And I think this is where people get so frustrated because technically, yes, calories matter, but they're not the whole story. Um, when insulin is high, your body is essentially in storage mode. And, even if you reduce calories, your body compensates by lowering energy output. I think people are like, the law of thermodynamics. And it's like, yes, we're not saying the law of thermodynamics isn't real, but the point is that our body isn't like a closed system that's like a math equation, right? We're like a hormonally regulated system that's dynamic. Your body compensates by lowering energy output when we reduce calories. Our hunger increases, our cravings increase, and our metabolism slows. So now you're eating less, you're thinking about food more, you feel more tired, and you're not seeing results. And you feel frustrated, you feel like a failure. But let's be real, it's not a discipline issue. It's a hormonal environment issue. And this is why people end up in this cycle of restrict, lose a little weight, plateau, restrict some more, crash because it's not like sustainable, and then they regain the weight, right? It's restrict, lose a little weight, plateau, restrict further, white knuckle it as long as you can, crash and burn, regain the weight. And it's not because you're broken or you're not capable of losing weight. It's because the strategy that you're using doesn't match the physiology that you're dealing with. I want to say that again because I think this is like I don't know if you can tell, I'm a little passionate about this, but it's, we think we're broken because we can't lose the weight the way that we used to and the way that, the fitness bros on the internet or even gals on the internet are screaming at you to do. And so you feel that like your body's broken because it doesn't work. But the truth is you are not broken. Nothing is wrong with you. It's because the reason this isn't working is because the strategy that you're using doesn't match the physiology that you're dealing with. It's a mismatch. You're not working with your body. You're essentially working against it. And that is what I'm all about here in my course Lifestyle School for Weight Loss and in my this podcast Lifestyle School is I want you to understand how your body works so that you can achieve long-term success, no white knuckling, no, crazy binge restrict cycles, that you can just live your life, work with your body, and release that weight that you're holding on to, heal any other health issues that are secondary to this metabolic dysfunction, this insulin resistance, and you can live a happy, healthy life where you feel good in your skin and you're thriving, right? That's what I want for you, and that's why I'm, here again, ranting in my microphone on my podcast about things that maybe you've heard me talk about before, but it's so important, and I want this to really sink in for you. So I think it's really important that we understand how do we get to a point of insulin resistance because it is more than just food, which I think sometimes people just think like, oh, well, if you eat a lot of processed junk, you're going to become insulin resistant, which is true, but it's more than that. And I think this is an important thing to understand. And it's also important to understand insulin resistance doesn't happen overnight, right? It's the result of multiple inputs stacking up over time. And so, one of the first ones I would say is constant eating. I think culturally here in America, we've been told you got to eat every 2 to 3 hours or your blood sugar is going to crash. Or like that's what I was told. I lived by that for years and years and years, and I was eating healthy, clean foods, but I was eating constantly, and I couldn't lose weight to save my life, and I was so frustrated. It also, I did feel like my blood sugar was going to crash because if I didn't eat constantly, because my body couldn't access stored energy for fuel because I was insulin resistant. And so if you're constantly eating, you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, you're snacking. If you're drinking calories, your insulin is elevated almost all day because every time you put something into your mouth, you're telling your pancreas to produce insulin, right? Your body never gets a break from this constant push of insulin, and without a break, it never gets a chance to reset sensitivity, and you become insulin resistant. It's really, really easy, really common way. And also, I think, I have 4 kids now. Um, Obviously, this doesn't apply to my baby, but it also makes me like rethink like having my kids snack throughout the day because, I don't want my kids to become insulin resistant. Insulin resistance in children is becoming a huge issue with most snack foods too for kids is like all just junk, empty calories, blood sugar dysregulating food. And so, they're eating that every 2 to 3 hours. Same with kids, their insulin is constantly being stimulated and it causes issues. And so we have to be mindful about how frequently we're putting food in our mouth. 2, 3 meals a day, and we should be good. Number two, I think this is a no-brainer, but highly processed, high-carb foods are a straight shot to insulin resistance. They're refined, they're low in fiber, super easy to overeat. What these do is they create rapid spikes in blood sugar, and then that then results in a large insulin response. The more sugar there is in your bloodstream to be removed, the more your pancreas needs to pump out insulin to try to pull that sugar out, right? But do that multiple times a day for years, and your system really starts to wear down. I will say, when I was wearing a continuous glucose monitor, I was just shocked by how even the like quote unquote healthy processed foods, like think avocado oil, sweet potato chips, like the Boulder brand. Not trying to pick on them. They taste phenomenal, personally. I could eat way too many of them, or like Siete chips, but I would eat those and man, my blood sugar would just take off. And I know if I like start eating those, they're low in fiber, they're refined, they're so easy to overeat. It's really hard to stop, right? And then you get on that blood sugar roller coaster where your blood sugar is going really high and then it comes really low because, maybe your insulin, like your pancreas did like an over response, which is uncommon if you have a really big blood sugar spike to kind of have like a rebound semi low blood sugar. And then you feel like, "Oh, I need to eat, my blood sugar is low." And then, you're back on the roller coaster all day. It's so easy with highly processed foods, even if, it's the quote unquote clean processed foods. Okay. So I think that's a really big one and just something to watch out for because, people those people in marketing, man, guys out there, they're genius. It's like you think, oh, well, it's like a clean brand. It should be healthy. And really, if it's highly processed, if you have insulin resistance, it is not going to serve you on your weight loss and health journey as you're trying to, recover and reverse this process. But the good news is that it is reversible, and we're going to talk about that. Number three is poor sleep, and man, we harp on sleep in on this podcast and in my course. Sleep deprivation alone can make you more insulin resistant the next day. And so, just like a few nights of bad sleep is going to raise your cortisol, it's going to increase your blood sugar, it's going to increase your hunger. So now, not only are you sleep deprived, but you're more likely to overeat and your body is less equipped to handle it. And so, we gotta look at sleep as something that's super important. If we're dealing with insulin resistance, we have to get this under control. Number four is chronic stress. And I think, in the day and age we live in, we don't give this enough airtime. Stress is so bad for us. I don't remember the name of the paper, but there was a study that came up that showed that chronic stress was worse than smoking for your health and for your long-term health. And so, like, if you go through your week and you feel like you are in chronically stressed out, you need to rethink your life choices. And there's things we can control, there's things we can't control when it comes to stress, but those things that you can control, you need to start controlling them and getting stuff in a better place, because stress raises your cortisol, and cortisol raises your blood sugar, and your body has to release insulin to deal with that. So maybe you're not eating all day, and maybe you are eating clean foods, but maybe you're just stressed out of your mind, and your body has to release insulin to deal with that. So, this is something that I think, as we kind of sort through what are the areas that are maybe causing me to deal with insulin resistance or high blood sugar, chronic stress is definitely one of those ones that needs attention. Number five is going to be lack of muscle mass. Last week we talked about lifting heavy weights. I mean, for so many reasons, lifting heavy weights, building muscle is so important. But muscle is one of the primary places your body stores glucose. So the less muscle you have, the less storage capacity you're going to have for storing glucose, which means that more glucose stays in your bloodstream, more insulin is required. And, this is why strength training is not optional, in my opinion. And I think, it's kind of common consensus for long-term metabolic health. You have to build muscle. You have to maintain the muscle that you have. And that is also, I think, one of the reasons why you have to be so careful about using something like a GLP-1, Ozempic, or I think it's Wegovy, because while those can help with blood sugar regulation, they help with appetite. If done improperly, it's been shown that many people lose a lot of muscle mass. And so at the end of the day, unless you want to be taking these super expensive medications for the rest of your life, um, you know, you have to figure out this muscle issue. And even if you continue taking this, you're going to get to a point where, muscle is what allows you to age well. If you fall down, can you get back up, right? You have to have muscle to age well. There's a bunch of research to back that up. And so going about your weight loss in a way that promotes healthy muscle mass is super important. But also, if you're dealing with insulin resistance, this might be part of the puzzle for you. Number 6 is just like a sedentary lifestyle. Okay. Movement helps your body use glucose without needing as much insulin. That's why we talk about, walk for 10 to 15 minutes after you have a meal. So then, your pancreas isn't having to do as much work. Your body is then like naturally mobilizing glucose into your muscles, and into your cells, versus, having a bigger insulin response. And, your body is just so much more efficient at clearing glucose if you're moving. So, if you have a meeting that you have to take and you can take it while you go for a walk, instead of watching a show after dinner, go for a walk for 10 or 15 minutes first and then watch a show or just skip the show altogether, right? Finding ways to incorporate movement into your life, I think in Western culture, we have just cultivated lives that are very sedentary, especially, if you live in somewhere like Minnesota in the winter and it's cold outside, you don't necessarily want to go outside and move, right? I have heard that it's been much warmer there recently, so that is nice. But we have to figure out ways to not live a sedentary lifestyle. We're not sitting at our desk all day. We're not sitting in front of the TV because that makes a huge difference. Number 7 is a history of chronic dieting. Unfortunately, this is a really big one, and I think people don't think about it when they think about what could have caused insulin resistance. Years of calorie restriction, followed by overeating and then undereating protein, can lead to loss of muscle, increased stress hormones, and reduced metabolic flexibility, which really sets the stage for insulin resistance. So if you have been a chronic dieter, that might have been your pathway to insulin resistance. So hopefully you feel like you have a good handle on what insulin resistance is and how you might have ended up here. And a couple points that I just want to say, I don't have this in my notes, but I thought of this. If you're like, well, how do I know for sure if I'm insulin resistant? How do I know for sure if I'm insulin resistant? I think the best, like a very easy place to start is, go into your medical doctor and say, hey, I just want to have my blood sugar checked, have your fasting glucose tested, have your hemoglobin A1C tested, and then ask them if you can actually also do a fasting insulin. Your medical doctor may not do this for you. It's not as common of a test, but you can also just go to a Quest Labs and get it done yourself, and it's pretty inexpensive. But if your hemoglobin A1C is above 5.2%, it's likely that you're maybe possibly trending towards insulin resistance. It's a little bit harder to tell with a hemoglobin A1C because what hemoglobin A1C gives you is like a 90-day snapshot of what your blood sugar has been doing. And if you hit 5.6%, you're in the pre-diabetic range, which is what we don't want for you. But when you look at your fasting insulin, if it's above a five, a lot of people will see an 8 or a 10 or even sometimes like a 15. That tells us that your fasting insulin is high. Your body has a lot of insulin that it doesn't necessarily need. And if we can get it below 5, that tells us that your body is optimized from an insulin perspective to access stored fat to be used as energy. And it's going to make that process of weight loss so much easier. So the good news is that this is not permanent. If you are insulin resistant, your body is incredibly adaptive. You have to work with it though, and not against it, right? And so, I want to give you some practical steps, tools, and things that you can do to start, moving towards reversing insulin resistance. So a really easy place to start is we have to stop constantly eating, right? Constantly eating leads us to insulin resistance. We got to stop doing that. Let insulin come down between your meals. Start, eating your 3 square meals a day, no snacking. And, if, appropriate, try to stop eating 3 hours before bed so that you have, a good 12, 14-hour overnight fast, even with those 3 meals a day. That would be an incredible place to start. I think most people don't understand how frequently they're eating and then how late into the night also that they're eating. And so really their body has no break other than the few hours that they're sleeping. Hopefully you're not one of those people who wake up in the middle of the night and eat. I have met some of those people, but I think that's a little bit more rare. Number 2 is, prioritizing protein and whole foods at your meals. Making meals that are going to leave you feeling satiated is so important, right? Because if you eat a meal and then you're hungry later, it's like torture waiting until the next meal. So building your meals around a good chunk of healthy protein. I am, kind of biased towards animal protein, but get a good source of protein, have plenty of healthy fats, and then a fiber source if your body tolerates fiber well. Because what this is going to do is it's going to help stabilize your blood sugar. It's going to reduce insulin spikes, and then it's going to help improve satiety so that you're not white knuckling it between meals. That is like a very easy way to start. So, how much protein to have? Well, I think most people could go anywhere from like 4 ounces on the low ends of protein to like 8 or 12 ounces of protein on the higher end in a meal, depending what you need, what your goals are, how many meals a day that you're eating, and so on and so forth. I actually think next week I'm going to be talking about how much protein we should be eating from my perspective for, metabolic health and insulin sensitivity. But then, you have to have healthy fats. So think olive oil, olives, avocados, avocado oil, nuts and seeds. Don't go too crazy on the nuts and seeds, especially if you're trying to lose weight. But those are really great sources of healthy fats. And then, from when we talk fiber, we're talking like real whole vegetables that aren't processed. Number three, I mentioned this earlier, walking after meals. This is one of the most underrated tools when it comes to reversing insulin resistance. That 10 to 15 walk after eating helps clear glucose. It's going to reduce the insulin response. It's simple, it's effective, it's free, right? And so, and also I do think from like a mental health perspective, just getting outside and walking and moving after we eat, it just helps us feel so much better. So that is going to be like just an easy tool in your tool belt to put to work. Number four is lifting weights. We talked about this last week. Honestly, I think it's a non-negotiable. We have to not just lift weights, but like challenge ourselves with the weights, try to gain some muscle mass, get stronger, lift heavy weights because muscle improves insulin sensitivity. It gives your body somewhere to put that glucose and it shifts our metabolism in such a powerful way. And so if you're not doing it, don't overcomplicate trying to start lifting weights. Do it 2 times a week for 15 minutes a day, or maybe just 5 minutes a day, right? To start if you haven't done anything for years. I think people, get this idea in their mind that it has to be this big, complicated thing when it comes to lifting weights, but it doesn't. So don't overcomplicate it. Start where you're at and then build from there, right? Build some confidence in yourself and then keep building. Number five, you're not going to be shocked to hear it. Improve your sleep, right, guys? You can't out diet poor sleep. Aim for a consistent schedule. You're waking up at the same time every morning, you're going to bed at the same time every night. That is going to change the way that you sleep. You are going to be amazed by how much better that you feel. Even if you were getting that 7 to 8 hours that really you should aim for, if your schedule's all over the place, it's not going to do the same thing for you. And then if have trouble falling asleep, especially this is important, make sure you're getting that morning sunlight in your eyes for even just a couple of minutes. Go find the sun, look at it. If that's not possible, maybe buy a light that mimics the light of the sun in your eyes, because what that is going to do is help with that circadian rhythm so that your cortisol comes down in the evening and your melatonin can come up so that you naturally can fall asleep more efficiently. Number six, we got to manage stress, guys. This doesn't mean eliminating stretch. It means regulating it, right? And so figuring out where are the things in my life that I can mitigate this stress. Because I think all of us invite things into our life in some way or another sometimes, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, that stress us out, right? And there's things that we can control, there's things we can't, but we have to control the controllables. And there's many, many things that we can do in regards to stress to do that. So be strategic, be diligent, be maybe a little cutthroat when it comes to managing stress. And take control of this area because this is going to be huge for your road to recovery. And then also, practice things like breath work. Go take some time outside, create boundaries, slow down, take that nap when you feel like you need it. All of this directly impacts your metabolic health, your insulin resistance. And so you have to be unapologetic when managing this if you want to be successful long term. One thing that I've been doing with stress is, I have 4 kids at home, and there's just times where it's like everyone is asking me questions. The baby is crying. I need to be doing 5 different things. We need to be leaving the house in 5 minutes. And you're just like, ah, like I'm about to lose my mind. And I can just feel my nervous system just crashing out. And what I have found is I've like trained myself. I have this classical music station. I think I've talked about it on here before, but I turn it on and I just start breathing and I listen to it. Even if like everything else is like, it sounds like the house is burning down in the background. I focus on the music and I breathe. And it legitimately, I've taught myself to like when I turn on this music, when I start breathing, it like calms me down. And it has been such an amazing tool. So find a way to do that amidst the chaos. And I promise you it's going to help. Number 7 is use fasting strategically. Fasting gives your body a break from the constant insulin exposure. And this is why I love fasting as a tool. It's the most effective way to lower your insulin levels in your body, to get that fasting insulin level to come down. It's going to promote fat burning. It's going to improve your sensitivity to insulin. But it has to be done intentionally. We never want to use it as a punishment. Let's use it strategically. And I really focus in my course on how to teach you, on teaching you how to use fasting strategically for weight loss, because it is a phenomenal tool. Honestly, it's changed my life. And I can't tell you how much better I feel when I'm consistently fasting in a way that's working with my body rather than against it. So with that, guys, this is what I want you to take away from this episode. If what you used to do is simply not working anymore, it doesn't mean you need to do more of that, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. It probably means you need to do something different because your body isn't a math equation, right? It's a hormonal system. And when you start to address the root, insulin, sleep, stress, maybe not enough muscle mass, meal timing, everything starts to shift and you start to actually make progress and feel good about yourself. And, it makes you feel like you're not crazy anymore. So if this episode resonated with you guys, this is exactly the kind of work we do inside my course, Lifestyle School for Weight Loss. We don't just hand you a plan. My goal is to teach you how your body works so that you can stop guessing, so you can stop starting over and over and over again and finally build something that lasts for a lifetime. So if you're ready to do that, you can find more information in the show notes. Head over to my website, www.hopecoaching.com. And if this episode helped you, or if you're like, yes, this is the way, share it with a friend, leave a review. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe, because you don't want to miss upcoming episodes. And guys, we're just getting started here. I know we're 65 episodes in, but I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate your time and your support. And we will see you next week on the Lifestyle School podcast.